Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Miguel from Conifr.
Lovely.
Welcome, Miguel. Round of applause.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate.
Morning, everyone. My name is Miguel Gomez. I'm here from Conifr, based in Fremantle, so I've got a little bit of a trip that I made over here for you guys. I want to start out with just a bit of a quick view of this, because to me it feels quite everybody has to deal with the problem of dealing with spreadsheets and PDFs and just unstructured information across an organization. There's a ton of information that is never in a system, and some people end up having to do lots of coordination of spreadsheets to actually make use of it. And so this is highly manual, takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of cost, especially if you have a lot of people doing this. And to be able to automate this, I think, is a really interesting problem to solve. So for us, we're really focused on dealing with fragmented data across an organization. Now, AI has really enabled a lot of technology the technology has enabled us to be able to basically scan documents, ingest information that could be in lots of different formats, and organize it in a way that is really easy to use. So we see ourselves as a bridge with different data systems or different documents that you might have, connecting all that information into one place. And we think by doing this that there's a huge amount of value that you can get in an organization, both at a cost level where you have margin increases from your reduced maybe labor staffing, or from actually finding out that there could be changes in your business that could be helpful to improve operations. So for us, we see that there is all this data that probably does exist in an organization, kind of in an iceberg, right? It sits underneath. It's not necessarily used in the way that it should be. And so we think that there is a huge amount of time that these teams spend. We think it's about 80%. I would imagine a lot of you have this experience where you see people just constantly administering data, entering it into a system, into a spreadsheet, whatever it is. And so, if you don't have enough teams, you probably end up having to hire people to help you do that. So our technology is pretty straightforward, right? We have kind of 4 or 5 steps that are in there, 4 are highlighted here. But what we want to kind of clarify is that we don't replace the systems you already have or replace the information you already have. We work alongside it. So the steps are pretty clear. The first step is really around extraction. So an example is you take information from a document or a spreadsheet. The AI does all the work to make sure that it understands all the things that are in that document that you want to actually get out of it. The structured data set process then uses that's our kind of secret sauce in the background, where we're taking all that information, organizing it in a way that's really useful. We then can run classification on top of that, and that's one of the things that we've noticed working with clients, is that if you don't have a good classification of transactions or whatever data it is, it's very difficult to actually do proper analysis. So classification is key, and AI really does a fantastic job in doing that, especially when you train it on your specific data set. And once you get into a clean data set that you can actually use, it's really important to get it clean, because then AI can be used again to be able to do things like natural language queries. So with Conifr, you can, if you've uploaded, let's say, 1,000 invoices and you want to understand what vendors were doing what or what cost you were seeing, that information can now be used by anyone on your team. You don't need data analysts or data engineers to come in and help you run queries. The queries run through the AI because it has the context of the data of the database. So very straightforward. These are kind of just examples of spreadsheets or PDFs or whatever it is that you might have in a business. They get uploaded into a secure cloud drive that we have built into the application. The platform then kicks off all those processes of reading the documents, understanding what you need to get out of it, and basically extracting that knowledge. So this is kind of what we think a process looks like, right? In discussions that we've had with lots of clients, this is a workflow for sustainability data, which is where we started, because sustainability data requires you to have lots of information from a ton of sources in a business: fuel, electricity, waste, water, whatever. All of those come from external vendors or from systems that aren't necessarily connected, and ERPs are not good at managing this, so it's mostly managed in spreadsheets. And so what we've noticed really is that SaaS solutions are always sitting on that, that right side of the screen there, where they're happy to ingest the information as long as you have it in a nice, clean way. But all of that hard work at the beginning is where organizations are facing their trouble. And so if that doesn't get done, then there's a lot of things that probably don't get done as well because the data isn't organized in a way that can be useful. And just a couple of use cases on how we are able to solve some problems for organizations. So on the financial side, we can work with companies that have lots of POs or invoices, bank statements, ingest all that information at a very, very high level of accuracy, and apply all of the logic that you might have in your business. So one of the key things that we have built into the tool, into the platform, is that we're able to take the knowledge that exists in the minds of the people that you on the front lines. They understand what I'm supposed to get out of document X or document Y, and we build that logic into the tool. So as soon as you upload that document, that information is already being classified because it's taking that knowledge of how do I classify this and applied it to that information. We do this for things like fleets. So we work with large transport companies where they have lots of mobile assets. They're very disparate and kind of all over the place. You're able to bring in things like vehicle maintenance, which is a very difficult problem for them to solve because there's people just entering information in. Building management's another one. There's lots of different things, different systems going on in a building. So you can try to find interesting insights from that as well. On the sustainability side, where we started, this was really, I think, we've nailed this in a way that few other organizations that we've seen have. We make it easy for someone to just simply upload the documents, and it will calculate the emissions on it. So if you have a fuel system or electricity information from a building, it knows, it'll pull the kilowatt hours, it'll know that it's at a certain time of day, and that kind of information then is used to calculate things like emissions. So many of you that may be in a position where you need to report because it's now legislated, this kind of technology is quite helpful. For us, we do have to work with lots of stakeholders, right? The executives are really focused on making sure that they get additional insight into their business. Operations teams are more focused on how do we get this data organized in a way that we can actually use it. And ESG teams for us is one of the main things that we see is they're able to now do these initiatives that reduce emissions or that are strategically focused in the business, and they're not sitting there just trying to understand how to get this information together. So that's us at Conifr. We're really keen on having a conversation. We're really focused on making sure that there's a journey that you need to go through. I think AI is not necessarily just ChatGPT as many people use it, or a Copilot as probably a lot of you have used in the past. It's about how do we take this very, very useful technology like LLMs and implement it into workflows in places where it makes the most sense to actually solve real business problems. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Miguel. So I did have a couple of, or I had one question for Miguel, but then please have a think about whether or not anybody has additional questions. I'll come to yours in a moment if I can. So I don't know who's got the roving mic, but we've got the lady over here in the row here that's going to ask a question in a moment. Miguel, so here's a bit of independent validation. We've looked at 2 use cases for Conifr. They are both financial services oriented, but it doesn't always have to be FS. One was a mutual bank that actually holds troves of contract information about its customer base, where information in that contract documentation will be useful to them from a KYC perspective or even from a pure customer data perspective. So a solution like Conifr can read that information, pull out the relevant insights, database that, and API that straight into their CRM. So that's one use case that we looked at. The second use case, which was really compelling, was taking about $1 million of spend on a remediation program that was looking to manually read a whole bunch of well statements that may or may not have been erroneous, and turn that into a 6-week program of work, not a year, to actually produce an outcome that might cost maybe 10%, 20% of the total cost. In that particular case, again, the Conifr tool can use advanced AI to read the statements, database that information, and then quickly replay the insights from that read in a way that even humans are likely to make more errors around and identify where there are issues in those statements that require further follow-up. And my question to Miguel was, what is it? Why is what you do around those sorts of solutions better than someone trying to dial up their own solution in Google or some other world.
Yeah, I mean, I think all these solutions exist in kind of isolation, right? Extraction of documents is nothing new. Probably a lot of you have this type of technology in your business. I think what we've really nailed is bringing it all together, right? So we have a document management system that allows you to track that information really easily. Then the information goes into a very advanced, kind of AI and computer vision based tool that's probably more advanced than what a lot of tools are in the current market. We know the type of, we've built out a very robust type of database structure so that that information goes into the fields that you actually need. You're not just building something to extract it and having to have a data engineer build out, well, how do I put that into a spreadsheet and all of that? It goes into a very easy to use database. And then from that point, once the database is in there, we've also built out, as I've mentioned, all these classification and business logic rules and all these additional kind of tools that you would normally have to bring together and cobble together. We've already done that for you. So it makes it a lot easier for a team to basically say, we have this pilot project, we want to understand how you guys can help us, and we can do it in a number of weeks, right? It's not going to be this year-long commitment. It's let's test it out. Give us a couple of documents. What is it that you want? We run a pilot, and it's very quick to implement. And again, it doesn't change any systems. You don't need to kind of go through a process with IT to do lots of things generally. So I think that's probably...
That's a good summary. And in that particular case I was talking about around wealth management remediation, 60,000 documents that were going to need to be read individually by 6 analysts over the course of 12 months was now 6 weeks, including startup, delivery and closeout. Sorry, there's a lady there in the front row.
Hello. Oh, hello. Hi, Amanda from CVGT. I'm just wondering how Conifr copes with governance. Does the AI detect and help run rules on things like PII or confidential sensitive data bits that you shouldn't perhaps be doing certain things with, for example?
Yeah. So we don't normally have to work with PII, but it is something that we've been working towards. It's quite straightforward for us because of this organization or the structure of the architecture of the system. But yeah, we can manage with PII data because obviously it's important for you to make sure that certain users have access to some information and others don't. So yeah, that's absolutely something that we can manage.
Great. Thanks, Miguel. Any more questions for